Gbadebo Rhodes-Vivour, former Lagos State governorship candidate of the Labour Party in the 2023 election, is here with us to dissect the president's speech, the End Bad Governance protest, and also take a look at a recent online campaign aiming to evict Igbos from Lagos. He will be joined by Ahmad, Sajoh, a former Commissioner for Information and Strategy in Adamawa State and Public Affairs commentator. Good morning, gentlemen. Good to have you join us on the morning show today. Good morning. Good morning. Good morning. All right, Gbadebo.
Good morning. It's our pleasure.
Thank you, Mr. Sajoh. Thank you indeed. But we'll start with Gbadebo, who is right here with us in the studio. And I think that it is important to first start at what you think of the president's speech. We have our own opinion and everything. A lot of people have been talking about it. What are your thoughts? Do you think that it came rather too late, but now that it has come, do you think it has sufficiently addressed the yearnings of the masses, particularly those who have been on the streets for 3 days campaigning for good governance?
Thank you. Well, I feel that the president had almost a month's notice before this protest happened. And this gave them enough ample time to plan strategy and responses to what Nigerians have been calling out for, which is hunger, pervasive hunger in the land, huge unemployment, reduced income, and people just not being able to cope. So the president did not take that advantage of the notice that was given and has now given a speech almost 4 days into this where lives have been lost, properties have been damaged. And even in the speech, you find that they are also victims of their own propaganda. You talk about increasing the amount of oil production to 1.6 billion barrels when it's barely about 1.2 billion. We talk about people investing in the sector when we know for a fact that most companies are pulling out and investing in other African countries. We talk about the CNG production, which sounds good on paper, but we've not seen the possible fueling of these trucks and how it's going to actually be implemented properly across the country. And one would have hoped that he would have focused that kind of technology or idea based on moving food from the rural communities to urban centers, securing the farmlands and securing farmers to also increase food production. That was an opportunity that was missed, in my opinion. But more than anything, I experienced or I saw a very flaccid attempt at empathy, because empathy is also action that will show a broad-based cut-cutting strategy in governance. Because one of the things that's paining Nigerians is they're in the midst of so much poverty, in the midst of so much hunger, and they are reading things about a new private jet that is bought, 21 billion being budgeted for one man and his family in a house, extravagant expenses of our commonwealth. That shows that this government is not really connected or understands the travails that Nigerians are going through. So that was a very big opportunity that was missed. And they could have taken a page out of what they experienced or what they saw happen in Kenya and not wait for this to get this bad. But just look and see that, it's time to give symbolic and meaningful gestures to Nigerians to know that our leader is with us. That is what empathy is. It's not just coming and saying, I feel. You feel, now you have to act. What is the action that you are taking? How are Nigerians going to feel that their commonwealth is being managed properly? What are the timelines and numbers of jobs that will be created? And this is what will give Nigerians hope, not just another empty basket of promises. What he did, though, that was positive to an extent was also highlighting, maybe because Alhaji Atiku Abubakar highlighted this fact that ethnic baiting and bigotry has no place in modern-day Nigeria. He highlighted it, but it's also very flaccid because this is a government that has its essays and SSAs, retweeting this Lagospedia page, right? Regularly. If you're on Twitter, most people associate the Lagospedia page as a branch or an arm of APC because essays and SSCs are constantly retweeting from it. You have a media aide by Ononuga that has come out to say very bigoted statements consistently, and there's no way that your principal will not be okay with these things, and these things are done consistently. So now that it has been brought up, I expect to see people being picked up, people being questioned for this kind of instigation and trying to rip our social fabric apart. And this is not just on the APC side. On the other side, where you have people, just everybody, no matter what tribe you are from, as long as you are instigating people against each other, you should be brought in for questioning. And because there are dramatic effects that these things have. They might seem like a small tweet or whatever, but it's just like in Germany, before Hitler started going after the Jews, there was a dehumanization of them consistently. And this happens across the world. And that dehumanization is what allows for violence to happen. I mean, since 1979 or since 1999, there's no group of people that have been targeted the way non-indigenous and Igbos were in the last election. And it's truly disgusting. So it's not just about having superficial statements being made. We need to aggressively cut down bigotry in Lagos, in Nigeria as a whole.
All right. I guess we will bring Sir Ahmad Sajoh into this conversation. Good morning, sir, and thank you for joining us on the morning show. Would like your assessment of the president's speech, especially as it has to do with some of the reforms that he has mentioned, including consumer credit and this CNG to cut the cost of transportation and the removal of fuel subsidy, which he says was necessary. I'd like your assessment of his speech.
I think let me start by very sincerely commending the president for a number of issues that he has raised. The issue about, not conceding to hate mongers and bigots is very, very central, is very key. The president, as commander-in-chief and as the chief, political office holder in the country, must assure Nigerians that wherever you stay as a Nigerian, you are really free and safe and protected by the institutions of state. And I think I commend him for that. I also believe very sincerely that his empathy was genuine. His concern for people was also very, very genuine, especially in the manner the address has been delivered. And I want to say that, some of us have been frightened by a number of things and some statements we have read. No nation can survive if its revenue to debt service ratio is 97%. That was really, really, really dangerous and frightening. And I want to also concede one thing, that when you say the president had not conceded, I think he has conceded. He has conceded on a number of areas, particularly opening up himself for dialogue. I think this is an opportunity for whoever is the organizer of the protest to now, arrange a platform for engagement with government. Since the government has said, look, we are ready and willing to come and dialogue with you, I think we should do that. I also believe that some of the explanations of what the government is doing will go a long way in helping, and particularly those aspects that have to do with stimulating productive activity in the economy. Many times, government can put forward policies and programs, and if we do not move forward also as a people to benefit from those policies and programs, we may lose out because of our inaction. And I think if there are loans to be given to manufacturers, we must oversight the use of those loans and make sure that they expand manufacturing and productive capacities, because that's the only way to expand also jobs and lower prices within the market. If the government says they are giving SME loans, we must make sure that we understand which SMEs are benefiting from those loans and what are they using the loans for. In the past, we have seen situations where people collect loans for businesses, but end up using it to marry additional wives or whatever other unproductive activities that the money will be used for, and at the end of the day, the credit becomes a heavy burden on the people. So I think, by and large, what the president has done is to reassure Nigerians that, look, the institutions of the state are ready and willing to protect you as citizens of the country, and that my government is planning and working very assiduously and hard in improving the productive sectors of our economy, and of course, naturally, reducing some of the wastages that have strangulated our economy. Those things are necessary, for us going forward. I think the president has done very well, but like you said, there are areas where we needed to have heard a lot more. The trigger of all of this protest was hunger, and we need to hear more about steps that are taken to reduce hunger. Of course, the president spoke about rice and grains and pharmaceuticals that would be imported without duty that are supposed to drive down prices. But we need to do a lot more to ensure that we address hunger, which is the real trigger of this very protest.
All right, then I'd like to come in here and bring it back to the studio with you, Mr. Vivour. We talk about the future of the protest and the movement. Yesterday and probably even today, we saw a dip, in the numbers, especially here in the southwest and even in the north, where the curfew was called. When we talk about the gravitas that this particular protest has. Now, as we see it losing steam, what do you think is the future of the End Bad Governance movement now that we've heard from the president? Do you believe that this speech is enough to, douse the momentum? Or do you see protesters continuing to advocate for change? And also, when you look at the response of the security agencies across the nation, I want to know what your response is to that, because we do know that there were people who were arrested. We know people who lost their lives, and of course, even pro-protesters who were part of, who joined the protest and tried to infiltrate it.
Well, democracy is a two-way dialogue, and I believe that the only reason why people come out on the street is because they feel that they are not being heard, and the institutions that are supposed to have that touch between the government and the people are being ineffective, so people come to the street. And I know for a fact that a number of protesters were looking to the government, to the president, to actually address his people, and that has not been forthcoming for a very long time. So I feel that to an extent, him just merely addressing the people does have its advantage, and something that was called for. But the quality of the address, not addressing most of the things that people are demanding, which is cutting governance, better use of our commonwealths, solving hunger and increasing productivity in the land. I feel that people will look at or listen to that speech and feel that they have not had their issues addressed. Now, how this will manifest in the coming days is left for all of us to see. But I don't feel that this speech was a silver bullet that will just solve all, because this speech did not have any timelines, it did not have any numbers to show that this government actually has a plan to address the concerns of the people. It was just promises, and also being, in my opinion, being defensive, because if your policies, all these policies you are reeling out, have not had an effect or on the common man, and everybody is still talking about how difficult the country is, then you must address that difficulty that they're going through, and that was not done in the speech. In terms of the police and or the law enforcement and how they handle things, so far so good in Lagos. It's been relatively calm. People have commended the police in certain instances, but across the nation, you see things that happen in Sokoto, in Kaduna, in the north, even in parts of, I believe, in Edo State as well. There have been some overzealous law enforcement that have used, and Abuja, used tear gas and used assault weapons that I do not feel were called for. Nobody here is calling for the removal of the president. People want to be heard. People want their concerns to be heard. And for the most part, I feel that most protesters have done so peacefully. Another thing that we must address is this looting of government agency buildings. I feel that in terms of policy, it's extremely important to carry the host community along to show the benefit of this investment to them and that community. I believe that if people know the benefits and it directly applies to them, they'll be more reluctant to actually damage or steal these things. That's my opinion in terms of policy formulation. Obviously, that is also not a silver bullet. People will still behave. Sometimes you find that even the government is sponsoring people to do this damage so that they can call it and label it a violent process and then curb it. But broadly, I feel that this speech has not addressed the issues that people have raised. It does nothing for the market woman that is talking about the hunger that she's persevering and how much the price of Gari is. He spoke about increasing the minimum wage as an achievement, but that minimum wage can barely buy a bag of rice. Minimum wage under Goodluck Jonathan could buy a bag of rice. So it's not just enough to say we've had huge revenues. What is the value of that revenue? What is the purchasing power of having that amount of revenue on the common man? And these things have not been addressed. So I guess we'll see in the coming days how that's going to affect the people protesting.
Thank you, Mr. Rhodes-Vivour. Now I want to take it back to Abuja. I want to ask you this because in the president's speech, he made sure to mention that states and local governments are receiving the highest allocation that they ever have. Now, do you believe that some of the anger that Nigerians are feeling right now should be directed at the local government level and at their governors who are now receiving large sums of money in allocation, which if people think that there's little coming from the federal government, do you think that there's also little coming from our governors?
Let us go to the speech and dissect it properly. The president laid a foundation of that you can use to contextualize the situation we have found ourselves in. I think, when the president says they've taken very strong measures to make sure that leakages are blocked and backlogs are cleared, and the revenue to debt service had reduced from 97 to 68%. Those are very, very strong economic achievements that the president had laid. And when he said the states and the local governments are getting more money, what it means is that the devolution of governance to the subnational levels and the municipal levels were supposed to have had direct impact on the people. And because these areas are actually the closest to the citizens. I want to believe that the people should begin to oversight their governments at all levels, the states, the local governments, and there is a very, very begging need for the states and the local governments to show greater responsibility for the welfare of the citizens. I think keeping all of it on the president is it's a little bit, not addressing the issues properly as they should be addressed. But let me also say that, we were concerned, a lot of us were concerned that people whose motive was totally not in tandem with the original organizers of the protest seem to have taken over the protest at some level. And at some level, we could see some dangerous occurrences, during the protest. The people that looted, the young people that went out on looting sprees, some of them are they are barely toddlers, 5 to 10 years old. Those ones cannot even be telling you that they are fighting over unemployment unlike the young people that are really well organized and peaceful and actually, articulate in talking about their plight as unemployed young people, those other ones are not unemployed for any reason. And then secondly, we noticed that, in some states, the flags of foreign countries were hoisted. That is a very dangerous thing. Why should anybody who is protesting against the Nigerian government again hoist the flag of another country? And we've also seen people who block roads and begin to say, we want military rule, we want military rule. What message are they sending? And I think there are some other aspects of this protest that go beyond whatever the original organizers had wanted us to address. So to that extent, I think we need to all of us come together, defend our democracy, protect our democracy. No matter what happens, it's our own democracy. And that's why the president said we have about 25 years of unbroken democracy. Nobody should deceive anybody to say, look, we don't need this democracy any longer. And nobody should also tell us that we need a foreign power at this stage, to run our country. But I concur with you absolutely that our citizens should also focus attention on other areas of governance, the states, the local governments. The citizens must begin to oversight their leaders, even the members of the legislature, senators, House of Representative members, House of Assembly members. We must begin to question, the way they are addressing our interests, because they are in their positions in representative capacity. And this is what the president is saying. All of us in governance, all of us as citizens must come together to utilize the opportunities, the advantages we have with the increased resources available to government institutions to enhance our productive capacity and improve our lives. That's more sustainable. If we produce, if our economy is productive, if we're able to, unleash the productive capacities of our people in a positive manner, we would be able to overcome our economic challenges on a sustainable long-term basis, not a short-term basis that, will eventually lead to hardship in the future. I think these are some of the key issues. I agree totally that we cannot continue to sustain an economy with 97% debt to service ratio. Is impossible, it's difficult. In fact, it's a road to disaster, to total destruction of our economy. I agree totally that the backlog of $5 billion that had been cleared should also, reflect very positively in the buoyancy of the economy and the condition of life of the people. And I agree totally that we must address the needs of our people at all levels.
All right, Malam Ahmed Sajoh, let me stay with you briefly just to ask this question, but in two parts. The first part is basically to know what your thoughts are if the protest should continue. Do you think that the speech of the president has done well to discourage people from going ahead to proceed with the protest tomorrow? That's part one. Secondly, do you think that what we have witnessed so far, particularly in the north, in the northern part of Nigeria, in terms of the protest, is a commentary on the perception of the president in that part of the country? You mentioned the things that we have not seen in a long while, treasonable in nature, protesters, hoisting the flag of another country. I believe it's Russia. You mentioned the part of protesters calling for a military intervention, treasonable without a doubt. You didn't mention the part where other people are saying Bameyi, chanting Bameyi, Bameyi, which, as you know, in Hausa, I believe, means that we're done, we're no longer interested, kind of a thing. Do you think that what we have witnessed is a commentary on the 14 months of Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu as president so far in the north? You know that the images that will stick in people's minds will be that innocent boy in Kaduna being shot by the military. The way that tear gas was unleashed on protesters in Abuja, in Kano, in Maiduguri. Is that the way that Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu and his administration will be perceived for the next 2 years plus of his administration in the northern part of Nigeria?
Yeah, thank you very much. I am happy you directed this question at me. And first, let me tell you that where the president in his address categorically requested protesters to return home and embrace dialogue and come and dialogue with him or with the government, I think I would like to appeal also to the protesters to heed to that statement. The president is the father of the nation, and he had said, look, where I have heard you, you've made your point. The issues that you have raised, I understand them, and I feel them, and I want us to sit down and talk about how we can go about them. All the other aspects that you're talking about, him cutting the cost of governance and everything, should be the subjects for negotiation, for dialogue. Even in conventional war, at the end of the day, the opposing sides must sit around a table and discuss. The end of every conflict is dialogue. There is no conflict that ends perpetually on the streets or on the battlefield. So we hope and pray that going forward, this address should signpost an end to the protest and the beginning of the dialogue process that would see to, addressing some of the core demands more directly. So that is that. But on your other question, I think there are political hawks, there are political opportunists that are trying to cash in on this seeming discontent, as exemplified by the protest, to say, look, we want to gain some political currency out of it. And so when some young people are instigated to say Bamayi is tied to, wherever you hear Bamayi, is tied to the treasonable call for military rule, which to my understanding is politicians trying to cash in on something that they see as an opportunity, because most of our political elites, unfortunately, are opportunists. They just look for an opening, and then they come in and begin to do this. And then there are also, the economic aspect. The ones the president called rent seekers, those ones that have been benefiting from some of the extreme leakages within the economy, they may also have to, mobilize young people to do some of those things. But let me tell you, if you want my honest opinion, as a Nigerian and as a northerner, what played out was not a perception of Asiwaju by the North. What played out is a clear indication of the abdication of the responsibilities that we, northern elites, I say it with all sense of responsibility, we have abdicated our role and responsibilities to empower our young people. We've allowed a large army of uneducated, out-of-school children walking about in the streets without homes, without families, without imbibing any values. They don't even know, and they don't understand what is family, they don't understand what is societal values, they don't understand what is societal norms, and they are roaming the streets. And we could see them, 5 to 10, coming out to protest. And imagine, when they broke into Kano, the National Library in Kano, they took away everything except books. Not one book was taken by anybody. That tells you that, look, these guys, their direction is totally different from whatever you are thinking of. So we have neglected education in northern Nigeria. We have allowed a large army of uneducated young people out of school, roaming the streets. they have been the reservoir from where insurgents have been recruiting their army. They have been the reservoir from where bandits and kidnappers have been recruiting their army. I even saw a placard in Hausa saying, "Munasa arage kudin wiwi," that they want Igbo Indian hemp prices to crash. These are the kind of people that we are breeding in northern Nigeria. So it's beyond just our perception of Bola Ahmed Tinubu government. It is, a wake-up call to every northern elite, whether you are a political elite or an economic elite, that if we do not, turn around this situation, right, if we do not address our out-of-school children, if we do not address the absence of skills in our children in northern Nigeria, if we do not address the problems of, unemployment by people who are uneducated, right, we will end up with a bigger crisis than we are facing. I sympathize with my president, Bola Ahmed Tinubu, for the fact that this thing is happening at his own time, and that people could interpret it to mean that he is the target, but I don't think he's the target. I think the target is all of us that are political elites, particularly in northern Nigeria.
All right. Well, thank you, Mr. Sajoh, for highlighting the plight of the people in the north. I'd like to bring it back here in the studio, and this is a question for you, Gbadebo. I'd like to, highlight that hashtag Igbo must go protest. President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, in his speech there, had condemned it, and as you highlighted, Atiku has called on the federal government to investigate, arrest, and prosecute those individuals promoting ethnic discrimination in the country. Atiku, in his tweet, had said that, history has shown us the consequences of allowing hatred and bigotry to fester, as we saw in Rwanda. We know that the Lagos State governor has responded, which many said took too long because, that rhetoric was on social media for about 4 or 5 days before he responded. But he responded and he called it reckless and, divisive and a dangerous rhetoric. He also promised that Lagos remains home to every Nigerian citizen, regardless of their ethnic nationality. But I'd like to refer to your tweet, which you put out yesterday. And your question was, isn't it so convenient that when it appears that Nigerians are standing together, to demand better governance from their leaders, we begin to hear these divisive rhetoric, which you say are sponsored to divide and distract us. I'd like for you to highlight that aspect of your speech, and also what danger this sort of rhetoric poses for the people of Igbo.
Well, I feel that it's a bit hypocritical for Governor Sanwo-Olu to come out and speak about this when you see in the last election there was no campaign based on policy or programs or any strategy that will move Lagos forward. It was a very anti-Igbo sort of, or anti-non-indigen, anti-non-Yoruba speaking political campaign. And even leading up to this protest, all in Lagos, it was just talking about Igbo people want to destroy Nigeria, Igbo people want to destroy Lagos. This bigotry was at an all-time high. I mean, even Bayo Onanuga was one of the people that parroted this malicious sort of rhetoric. And you see it come up. Even NSAS has been twisted by these same people, this government, to say that it was led by non-indigens. Non-indigens wanted to destroy Lagos. Let's not allow any protests to happen in Lagos again because non-indigens take this advantage and destroy Lagos. And these are very, very dangerous rhetoric based on lies and bigotry. I mean, one of the essays to media for this same Governor Sanwo-Olu was walking across Lagos State with the placards saying, "My Lagos, not your Lagos," trying to put intimidation and fear. I mean, you see the video of MC Oloman, everything that happened during the elections up till now. Fortunately, we have seen that the protests happened all across Nigeria. It was not about any particular tribe or any particular people. It's about a shared suffering that Nigerians are going through all across the country. But again, all of these things are distractions. like I highlighted in my tweet. It's distractions to take Nigerians away from the issues that affect them, such as hunger, low unemployment, high inflation, the value of the currency, the value of fuel, the value of food, and how difficult it is to thrive in this country. It is designed to take us away from that and start squabbling amongst ourselves, insulting ourselves, ethnic superiority, or trying to push this negative rhetoric. And you find that after elections, everybody goes and faces these issues that they've distracted you from, right? These are the real issues that are affecting you in your home with your family. And you find that at every point, whether it's NSAS, whether it's this protest, whether it's elections, any attempt of people to come together to hold the government accountable, especially in Lagos State, seeds of discord and bigotry. I will even go as far as saying, because Lagospedia was one of the major supporters of the APC and people that call themselves Yoruba conservatives, they're not based on any policy, on any movement to move the people of Yoruba land forward. It's just about hatred and spreading bigotry.
Sorry, Gbadebo, I'd like to come in here just very quickly.
Yes.
Because earlier you said that the APC or the president's speech shows that he's falling victim to their own propaganda.
Yes.
And you said that ethnic bigotry is meant to distract from what is going on. Now, I just want to call your attention to a tweet that you sent out at 10 a.m. the morning of the elections where you were the candidate for Lagos State Governor. And I quote, "They seem to be saying, our Lokon, it is our turn, also forging an alliance with southern ethnic groups, particularly the Igbo. Now the Ajoji Godogbo, the audacious alien, is jittery and threatening the landlord because the owner wants to rule his land." Now, some people argue that by doing that, you were making your base tribal and that you were also unkind to non-indigenous Yoruba people within Lagos. So the Our Lagos stance that you had, stressing that you were an indigenous to Lagos versus other Yoruba people, that you were also taking advantage of ethnic bigotry in your own campaign.
Okay, I think we should define what bigotry is. Bigotry is having a closed mind about a certain group of people and categorizing them in a way that damage or harm can come to them. Now, Lagosians, all from when leaders like Femi Okunu and people fought for Lagos to be an independent state, for the creation of a Lagos state, people like Mbolaji Johnson, have always fought to ensure that indigenes of Lagos control their state. People like Mbolaji Johnson talked about Lagos is not a no man's land. We have our kings, we have communities, we have indigenes of Lagos all the way from Badagry to Alimosho to Ojo to Ibejuleki. Now, if a people say that they want to be able to rule their land, I do not think that that is bigotry. All across Nigeria, the Ibadan man, the Ijesha man, the Ekiti man, they all hold that primary place of ruling their land, right? And that is the conversation. And I'm not alone in this conversation. You have a lot of elders from the Renaissance group in Lagos State, so a lot of elders that this dialogue is a long way coming. Back to the 1900s, where Lagos even fought for its own colony, separate from what was from being ruled in Ghana, right? There's been a consistency of Lagos being an independent colony, and for the people of Lagos to be able to control or determine their affairs. That is not bigotry. I think we are conflating things. Bigotry is when
someone an audacious alien bigotry.
Audacious alien.
Yes.
I don't think that's bigotry, because if you are saying that you are literally working to say that indigenes of a state are now Igbo, literally going after my entire paternal lineage, trying to remove me from that, saying that my father is not married to my mother and I was raised in and formed IPOB. I mean, there was so much that was said about me that questioned the lineage and a family history that goes back almost 200 years in Lagos State. Right? So I did not come out to say any lies about anything, right? We have to recognize that the indigenes of Lagos have been marginalized in Lagos for a very long time. And that is a genuine concern for a lot of people. right? And if I don't think you can conflate that by saying, I'm not coming out to say every Yoruba Southwesterner that's not from Lagos State must go. That is bigotry.
All right.
I'm not coming out to say that people are destroying or damaging things, or like things that are harmful. What you have brought up is literally a call by indigenes of Lagos to have larger control in the affairs of their state. And I don't think that's bigotry.
Well, all right. Gbadebo, I'd like to thank you very much. And also Ahmad Sajoh, right in our studio there, former Commissioner for Information and Strategy at Adamawa State. Thank you very much indeed for joining us on the morning show.
Thank you for having me.